All right, I think we will get going here for Inventor 2021. What's new? I appreciate you guys and gals for taking the time to be on this webinar today. My name is Jerry Oy. Some of you may have had me in one of your classes or been on the phone for tech support issues or what have you, but I am an application specialist with Applied Engineering. Been with the company for roughly 15 years. Some of you might have been on the webinar that I also did yesterday for automating your designs with iLogic, so I appreciate you for hopefully being on that particular webinar. Last couple days we've had Applied Day, obviously, and you can see that we had basically 4 webinars yesterday, and we have 3 today. We have one more after this one, a FEA overview and best practices that Alex Sinclair will be doing. So I'm going to be going through some of these PowerPoints. I'm going to do my best not to jump around as far as between PowerPoint and the actual Inventor application, but there might be a couple instances where I might jump over to Inventor. But generally what I'm going to do, I'll get through these slides and then we'll dive into the meat and potatoes of Inventor 2021. So just to give you an idea of how Applied fits within your guys' guys and gals companies, we offer some technology, some training, implementation, and support. So training, we do AutoCAD training, Vault training, also Inventor training, some of the different flavors of Inventor, as well as a basic and advanced AutoCAD class. And then, as I mentioned, Vault training that Eric Miller does. Implementation. So if you ever need one of our techs to come in and maybe implement Inventor software, AutoCAD software, implement Vault system or what have you, just give us a shout and we'll come in and do that implementation. And then obviously support. So some of you are probably familiar with first team support, where you actually get a one-on-one phone time with one of our techs, myself being one of them, and then Eric Miller and a few other personnel. Services, design and manufacturing engineering. We have upwards of 100 combination engineers and designers. Some of them are actually at our locations, Applied locations, which is Minneapolis, Fargo, Bismarck, and Sioux Falls. So out of all of our engineers, all depends on the customer and what software they use or what software they want us to use. We have a lot of people that use Inventor, use AutoCAD, could be Creo or some of the other parametric softwares out there. So software development, we have software developers in our Fargo office that can assist with any of your development needs when it comes to some customized software. And then reprographics department, we have a couple people in our reprographics that you come in and let's say you need a printout of civil type of layout, or it could be architectural type of layout. Essentially, the way that I look at it is anything larger than essentially a 11 by 17 sheet of paper that a conventional printer will print, just come in and we can print it to really whatever size you guys need. So keep that in mind. Inventor software. With every release of the Inventor software, as far as the performance of the CAD system, larger assemblies, drawings and stuff, every release, the performance gets faster and faster. So you can see some of the different pictures on there, some of the things we'll go over. Some sheet metal, you can reference existing faces or adding, in the case of a flange right there, that kind of a green colored flange. Right below that is a drawing as far as some of your components can be set as reference. And then now in 2021, even though they're set as reference, you can have your reference parts be either non-shaded and then the edges dashed. You can have them be shaded in dashed lines, and you can also have your reference parts also be, I guess, dashed lines on the edges. Stay connected. With Autodesk software, there's many different flavors of Autodesk software. So say you're using AutoCAD system and you're on site somewhere in a field, you can fire up a tablet or a phone and you can actually bring up your AutoCAD files through your whatever application you have in your hand. So, and then there's the model-based definition. So you can actually dimension your 3D models. This has been out for a couple years anyway. So, and some of the new changes with 2021 is the fact that on those annotations that you see in the upper right of the screen, you can actually attach some notes from, let's say, a model dimension. So you bring in that model into a drawing. One of those dimensions, you can actually attach a value into a note on the drawing. So if a thickness or a length or a width updates, you'll see that note on your drawing update automatically. It's not a manually entered field. Inventor ideas. So there's upwards, I believe, of about 40 new features with the 2021 software that was implemented because of all of you guys, the customers. So besides those 40 some new additions, there's also some that Autodesk themselves just implemented, but generally in most cases, Autodesk definitely listens to the customer and improves with each release of the software. All right, so this is just hitting on some of the different things that I'll be covering today. Some of these I'll actually do a demo within the software, and then some of these other ones I'm just gonna hit on through the PowerPoint presentation. But I'll hit on most of the ones that I feel most of you will take advantage of on your daily use of day-to-day use of the Inventor software. So Inventor Experience, you can see there that now with 2021, and this is in pre-release right now, is the fact that you can now have a dark theme for your ribbon panel, the model tree, and the actual graphics area. It is in pre-release right now, so there are some areas that will not have the dark theme, such as the home screen. If you go to a home screen, it still has that white background and stuff. So AnyCAD for Revit. So about 2 or 3 years now, Inventor's had AnyCAD technology, just meaning you can bring in non-native CAD files into Inventor, and if a Creo file that's in your Inventor assembly gets updated, or it could be SolidWorks or whatever other type of parametric software there is, if an update happens, as soon as you open up that Inventor assembly in your quick access toolbar, you see a lightning bolt. So if that lightning bolt is available, you click on that, and then that non-native 3D model that you're utilizing in your design with Inventor will update. The addition this year, though, is the fact that you can now bring in Revit files, and I think this is a pretty powerful feature. It's just that you bring in that Revit file, and again, if somebody, a vendor or customer, uses Revit, they made a change to some sort of architectural layout, you then bring up your file in Inventor, and you'll see that lightning bolt again become available. You can click on that, and your Revit file will update, and you'll be able to model off of that Revit file using your Inventor functions. Just general performance. There's not really anything I'm going to do as far as kind of a hands-on thing with an Inventor as far as performance, but with every single release of Inventor, the performance as far as being able to rotate your large assemblies, many thousands of components, rotate them around and not have as bad of kind of, let's call it jauntiness, when you're rotating models around. And that goes the same with your drawings as well. When you're creating those different views of, in the case of this picture here, that turbine, those views will get generated much quicker than previous releases, right? Drawing creation, they're already kind of hit on that as far as being able to change the look of your referenced parts within your assembly. Frame generator, there's some new features as far as placing those frame members, as far as what glyph or those white points on those frame members, which particular glyph do you want to be driven off of the sketch that allows you to create those frame members. You can rotate those frame members around. You can change the actual placement of those frame members off of those white glyphs. Some other features with frame members is you can extend frame members now to a curved surface, where previous releases you weren't able to do that. Okay. And then drawing automation. So this is dealing with iLogic. There's some new snippets now that will allow you to automate the dimensioning of your different views within your drawing. So you don't have to be a programmer to be able to utilize these tools within the iLogic portion of Inventor. All right, so Inventor Experience. Declutter your workspace with new options in the property panel and experience the new dark theme. So now this is the way 2021 will look. As mentioned, it is in pre-release, so maybe within the next few service packs, Autodesk might fully release the dark theme feature. But you just have to go into Tools, Application Options, and then the Colors tab, and you'll be able to turn on the dark theme. I'm going to skip this particular video. Some of these videos aren't playing very quickly, so let's just kind of pop through here. All right, so as mentioned, AnyCAD for Revit, maintain associated links between AutoCAD Revit and Inventor data with AnyCAD for seamless interoperability. So again, if the customer vendor made a change to their Revit file and you're utilizing that Revit file within your Inventor assembly design, you'll get that lightning bolt in the quick access toolbar. Click on that guy, and then that Revit file updates, and then you'll be able to model around those new updates. Some nice features that go along with that Revit file that you've brought in to Inventor is, if you look in the model tree there on the right, essentially within Inventor, all the different components that were made in that actual native Revit file, you'll be able to kind of sift through there, turn on, turn off those files. You can see a user click that drop-down menu where it says 3D view, and you can bring in maybe just a portion of that Revit file into Inventor, rather than, in the case of that full building, you don't have to bring in that entire building of the Revit file. Obviously, it's going to be a big file size, so you can kind of sift through there and maybe just bring in a portion of that entire building. Another video, let's skip that guy again. As I mentioned, some of these videos work just fine and others don't, so I don't want to go through that. Performance improvements. Spend more time designing with performance improvements inside the part, assembly, frame design, and tube and pipe modeling environments. So better performance when you're opening up files and updating files, just some of the general assembly workflows within Inventor, graphics navigation, as mentioned. That turbine assembly, there's probably thousands of parts in that. So rotating it around, it's going to be a lot more smoother transition when you are rotating it around. Okay. I'll try to play one of I'm just going to mute this for right now. So obviously, video's still playing. The user is bringing in all those different sub-assemblies and just grounding them to basically the origin location. And you can see that once those components get brought in, inserted at the origin, there's very little wait time as far as being able to bring in additional sub-assemblies. And then here they're going to be adding some additional holes in the right view, and then in the left view where those socketed cap screws are, you're going to see that it's going to update pretty quick as far as adding additional socketed cap screws in there. Okay. And then your drawing environment. So just generating the front, top, and right views. It's going to be, you know, considerably amount quicker than previous releases within the software. So. All right. Part modeling, save time with part level enhancements for sheet metal, multi-body parts, and 3D annotations. So with the new release, that first bullet there, window select bodies and faces. So if you are essentially using a .ipt file to create maybe some pre-production type of designs, instead of actually creating an assembly, just use your .ipt file and create just separate multi-body parts, and you can now window around the certain bodies, and those bodies will highlight, and you can quickly, you know, maybe either turn off those multi-body parts or change the color of a specific multi-body part. Unwrap enhancements. I don't personally use the unwrap feature an awful lot, but you can take a kind of a complex curve type of part and actually flatten it out. But just kind of keep in mind, there's no K factor or anything like that in mind. This isn't necessarily a sheet metal part, but in the case of that view in the lower right, you can take that part and you can flatten it out, and you can kind of improve on the fixed edges. In the case of those 4 holes, you can have those edges be fixed, just meaning that when it does get flattened out, those 4 holes will not be oblong looking. They'll be still be exact circles, I guess. So one of the enhancements as far as the model-based definitions, those 3D annotations in your actual model. So you can go into your text, you can add text to those different dimensions and stuff within your model, and you can attach them to model parameters. So now you can see there's a drop-down menu, you can select 3D annotations, and then you're telling Inventor you want to grab a model parameter. Which parameter do you want to grab? So in this case, D0. So right now it's showing you it's set to 2.5 inches. So in your dimension in your model, if that D0 parameter changes in length, shortens it, lengthens the value, your annotation will actually automatically update for you. Show extended names. So previous releases, you could turn on that show extended names, and what that does for you is if you extrude a feature or if you cut a feature, show extended names will tell you what is the thickness of that extruded feature or what is the depth of that extruded cut. Now, in addition to the 2021 work features, your work points, your work planes will show you, let's say, how far a work plane was created from a surface or maybe another work plane. Previous releases, you did not have show extended names for work features. Part modeling saved time with part level enhancements for sheet metal. So in this case, as I mentioned earlier, the user is creating that base flange feature, and you can now reference it to an existing surface that is already within your sheet metal part. Okay, so you don't have to worry about trying to figure out what that angle is. You just select that face that is blue in color, and then that new additional base flange will get formed to that specific angle. See if this video works. As mentioned, some of them seem kind of slow. So I'm going to skip that for right now, since we only have so much time. I want to dive into the actual meat and potatoes of the software here. So some other improvements in the assembly environment is tube and pipe assembly structure and file naming. So now you can go into your tools, application options, and you can kind of rename your runs, your pipe runs, and things like that. Within this option here, tools, application options, and save tab, you can now let Inventor know if you want the software to prompt you to save some of the different states here: migration, user edits, some custom changes to the API, and so on. So previous releases, there would be a dialog box popping up when you go to close a file, and it essentially wants you to save pretty much all the components that are in that assembly, even though you didn't make a change to it, which in some cases can get kind of frustrating. Another new feature with 2021, for those of you that actually use the bolted connection feature, 2020 and older, Inventor would always bring in bolted connection as a subassembly, and that subassembly is set as phantom, right? And then in your parts list, you would then see the components that make up that subassembly. So where that selection arrow is, you can now have Inventor bring in your bolted connection as just individual components within your model tree. You would not see the subassembly. You would just see the components. So you have an option to do either one. You want to see that subassembly in your model tree, or do you only want to see the components? And then this next slide here is just showing you, as far as the assembly environment, Inventor has now added the addition of some other functions that actually have a menu that just pops up in your model tree. So instead of taking up space in your graphics area, now those menus are now able to get placed in your model tree, and there's just an additional tab basically. Right below that, file naming, some new options there. So now for mirror and copy, previous release, you had frame generator and you had tube and pipe tab. Now there's a mirror and copy tab for file naming defaults. So you are able, in the case of the mirror, you are able to let Inventor know how do you want those mirrored objects saved out, to whatever folder. You can add additional names and stuff just by clicking on that plus. Same goes with copy. So if you want to copy parts within Inventor, you can click on that plus and you'll see a drop-down menu that shows you some of the different names that you want in your file. Add figures. Drawing creation, streamline your workflows with drawing level enhancements and new commands. Diameter dimension. Now with 2021, when you're in a drawing and you select on referenced edges, previous releases, in some cases, Inventor would not know that what you had selected on was an actual surface of a circular feature, right? Well, now in the new release, you select on edge references that are actually part of a circular surface. Inventor is smart enough to know that it needs to add that diameter symbol in front of it. Some other new features is now within the drawing environment, in your ribbon panel, there's the measure tool again. Previous releases, it did have the measure tool. For whatever reason, Autodesk did remove it for a release or so, and now it's added back into your drawing environment. So if you want to inquire a measurement between two different entities, you can get that, and it's not actually physically adding a dimension on your drawing. It'll just temporarily give you that value, okay? Some other feature, that lower right image, person's dimensioning the two holes. You don't want that dimension to be essentially parallel to those two holes. You can select that left edge that's in red, and you can select that as a reference, and then your dimension will be parallel to that referenced edge and give you your measurement. And then again, in the top view there, that is your referenced components. So display style, this is what's added now. You can have your reference components be displayed in a number of different ways. As mentioned, edges as referenced, shaded, so that's new. Edges as a part, shaded. Edges as a reference, that it was normal to 2020 and older. Edges as a part, all that means is the edges would not be dashed. They'll look like a normal component, like the other shaded components, and so on. All right, kind of getting through these slides here. So frame generator, create and document structural members faster with improvements to the user interface and editing tools. So I call those little white dots glyphs, okay? So you can specify which particular glyph you want to be locked in on your sketch. And that sketch drives the location of those frame members, right? There's some little manipulators as far as rotating those structural components. You have the glyphs as mentioned. And then you can see that now the frame member has a dialog box that, again, you can also dock to your model tree, saving space in your graphics area. So the dialog box won't be in your graphics area anymore. You do have the option to undock the frame generator dialog box, but what you see here is what you get, okay? So here's a handful of the new changes to 2021 in regards to the dialog boxes. So your insert frame, change frame, reuse, trim and extend, change, reuse, corner joints, and frame members all have the new dialog boxes that can be docked into your model tree, freeing up your graphics area. Some people may like it a lot. Some people might hate it until they get used to it, but the bottom line is what you see is what you get now. So hopefully it'll just take a little bit of time for everyone to get used to the new layout of the dialog boxes. So file naming, appearance setting, zoom and view controls. So in the frame generator dialog box, there's some new buttons. Let's see here. Towards the top of the frame member dialog box, not showing you here, but you can click on a button and that will zoom you into the actual frame member that you are editing, allowing you to change the location of those white glyph dots and so forth. So here, a user's extending a frame member up to a curved surface. So this is exactly how you that part will be represented on that curved surface. It's not actually adding a kind of a cope feature on that blue member. It's going to be a straight cut, but at least it's going to be able to be essentially welded to that curved surface. Some new options as far as the notch command. There's the C style of notch. So you can kind of cope a member to a C channel. You can cope one to a T style channel, and then you have that I-beam style. And you can see that there's some gaps that you can add in there. All depends on what location you want, right? All right, some additional improvements in the drawing environment. If you go to create a new drawing of a part or assembly, you will now see that there's what's called sheet formats on the far right. So instead of you having to manually place all the different views, your front view, right side view, isometric, and so on, you can scroll through these sheet formats that were already generated. This is part of the actual software when you install it, and you can specify which style of layout you want. And as soon as you click on create, your could be 3 views, 4 views, 5 views, whatever it may be, will get created on the fly. So that'll save a little bit of time for you to not have to do that manually. Lower view there, another way you can do that is just click your file drop-down menu, go down to new, and then just select drawing, and that flies out, and you have some other pre-selected sheet formats. And you can actually create your own custom sheet formats as well. Additional drawing improvements as far as iLogic goes. You can add linear, angular, radius, and diameter dimensions now using the iLogic snippets. So you can see in your iLogic snippets, there's the new location called drawing. These are all new snippets of 2021. Right below that, there's one that says drawing classic. So those are some of the drawing related iLogic snippets that you had in the 2020 and older releases. So the code in here might look a little scary to look at, but basically all you need to do is, if you want to add a linear dimension, double click on that guy, and there's only going to be a few lines that you need to change to suffice to what you're trying to acquire. All right, so kind of back to the end of the slides here. So I'm going to dive into Inventor then. So I'll just drag Inventor over to the screen here. All right, so right away, you will see that you have the kind of the dark theme here, right? As mentioned on your home screen, you still have the white background. So this may change when the dark theme is fully released and not in pre-release. If I just bring up just a model, I do have it set to white right now, and that was just when I was creating some of the PowerPoints. If you want that, change back to black. You can go Tools, Application Options, and then just bring up your dialog box here. You can go to Colors, and then go to Customize Schemes, and then just find your background here. There's your screen color, and you can just change this to black or maybe a dark gray or whatever it may be. Okay. That was not black, that was purple. Let's go back into black background here and go to the black. So if any of you are AutoCAD lovers, I would imagine you'll kind of love this new improvement to Inventor. And actually, when you first install Inventor 2021, this background is not going to be solid black. It's just solid black because that's just the color that I selected, but it's going to be essentially kind of an off black, similar to what you see in the model tree and the ribbon panel there. So if you don't like that, just go to Application Options. Right here, it tells you it's dark, it's pre-release. You just obviously go to light and then change it that way. Just take a little bit here and then I'll update my interface here. Hopefully. There you go. Okay. All right. So some of the other improvements, as I showed in the slide, if you look at my model tree, you will see that this wheel assembly looks like an assembly, but in fact, it's a part file that has multiple bodies in it. Okay. So providing you have your filter set to the correct one here, I can make a window around my IPT file, and I can actually select individual bodies now. So if I make a window around that wheel, it's just going to select that wheel, and then from there, maybe I can just change the color of it or something to that effect. Okay, I'm just going to X out of that. So as mentioned, depending on what you have the filter set to, faces and edges, select features, select bodies. So I do select bodies, just make a window around that. And I'm only selecting that socketed cap screw, okay? Because I'm fully encompassing those components. There's those two socketed cap screws. There's that pin between inside that wheel there. So I'm only selecting that pin now. So previous releases, you weren't able to independently select the individual bodies by making a window around there. And that also goes for faces as well, if you have the filter set properly. All right, so getting into the frame generator. So let's do this one here first. So I'm just going to bring up design here, and then I can click on that notch. See the new layout of the dialog box here. Okay, so you have your basic profile, custom I template, C template, and T template. So I'll just leave it on basic profile for right now. And then frame member, select on that frame member, and then make sure that one's selected, and then select that one. And if I look at it from kind of the side view, you can see what the end result's going to be. So in my dialog box here, you can see I have it set to 1/16 of an inch, right? So that's the gap that it's going to create for me right inside there. Let's go back in there, edit with frame generator. I'm going to change that to a value of 0 and accept that. And then you have that end result. Okay. So C, T, and I-beam notches. Let's go down to this square tube, and I want to edit the kind of the orientation of the location of that. So all I would need to do is just kind of scroll through here, find that particular member, right click on that, edit with frame generator. There's those glyphs I was talking about. Up at the top, these were the buttons I was also talking about. So if you select on that first one, it just kind of reorientates it like so, or I could click on zoom. It kind of zooms in on there, return to initial view, and so forth. So if I want to relocate that, I just need to select the correct glyph, and there it relocates it. Okay. Look at it from the side, grab that manipulator, and you can rotate it around. Besides actually grabbing those manipulators, you can also just come over to your dialog and enter a particular angle you want it set at. So +10, -10 will just go the other direction. Go back to 0. You can also do offsets. Okay, and right on the fly, it updates like it should, say 0.5 and so forth. So as mentioned, it might take some getting used to as far as the new dialog boxes, but within time, I'm sure most of you will appreciate the new way of getting through some of these menu items. All right, so here's another one. If I go into my design, so this is generating frame members on a curved surface. So I'm just going to say insert member. Let's just select the, it's already set to square, so I can just make a window around everything. And let's just generate those members. Okay, now from here, you can go in and select on trim and extend. So right here, select face to define the trim and extend. Just click there and then select frame members. And the nice thing, I don't believe this is in 2020, but you can multiply select all 3 members at one time instead of having to do it one by one. Okay, and just click on OK. So if I look at it from the side and kind of zoom in a little bit, let's change this filter to, let's say, faces. So you can see it's not actually coping the end of this square tube. It's going to be a straight cut, but at least it will be extended to that curved surface. Okay. Let's go back into this one. I'm going to go view. And let's get rid of my half section. Another thing that you can also do is those top members. I'm going to go through here and let's just delete those miters off of there. A few over on the far right side. Let's find those guys. All right, so another improvement in regards to the miter operation within the frame generator is I can click on my miter button and I can multiply select all of my members at once rather than just selecting 2 members, getting my miter, applying it, going on to the second one, getting a miter, applying it, third one, and so forth. You can grab them all at the same time, click on OK, and then you can see if I look at it from the top down, all 4 corners are now mitered all at once, saving you some pretty good time there. All right, this particular improvement I'm not going to actually demonstrate because I don't have Revit on my machine, but this is in fact a Revit file that I brought in using the AnyCAD technology. So just click on place and you just need to select place imported CAD file. From here, you just need to go in and specify which non-native Inventor file do you want to bring in. Okay, so whatever the file extension is of the Revit file, you just select that through the filter here, bring in that file, and I can use my Inventor tools and maybe model another beam or whatever it may be on that Revit file. Again, if the vendor or customer makes a change to this house layout, this Revit house, I will then see that lightning bolt in my quick access toolbar up here be selectable. So I'd select on that, see what change ends up getting updated in my design, and then I would maybe need to adjust that support pole holding that roof extension up there. Look at my model tree. You can also see that there's folders set up. These folders are fairly similar to what you would see in Revit. In regards to, there's a folder for furniture. So this Revit file has many different types of furniture items in the design. So as mentioned, I could come in here and I could right click, maybe turn the visibility off of some of these components and so forth. We're just removing associativity right now. Okay. Select those, right click, turn visibility on. So as mentioned, I did bring in the entire Revit file, but as you're going through your import operation, you can specify which portion of your Revit file do you want to bring in. That way it's not going to take as much time to import it into your Inventor design. All right, here's another one. So I'm in the drawing environment right now. I am going to bring up the actual model of this arm system. Okay, so I'm going to scroll through my model tree. I'm going to find that particular weldment or subassembly. I'm going to right click on that, go to bomb structure. Right now it's set to normal. Okay, so if we go back to the drawing, you will see that the line type is solid like all the rest of the items. So if your bomb structure is set to normal or default, all these components will show up in your parts list, right? However, if I go in my assembly, go to my bomb structure and set that to reference, I can then go to my arm system. Now you can see it is set as dashed lines, so that's telling the user that is indeed referenced. So if I were to select on that, let's go to the Annotate tab and Parts List, and just show that parts list somewhere. That's fine. Just move this over a little bit. Okay. So I'm not actually seeing that weldment or that subassembly in my parts list. Okay. If I double click on that view and go to model state, this is where you can now change how do you want that reference component represented. Edges is apart. So it is still a reference component. It's just that it's not showing you the dashed edges. 2020 Inventor and older, that's the only option you had was for your reference components to have dashed lines going around the perimeter of that component or subassembly. Again, just double click, model state, go into here and say maybe off, click on OK. All your reference components will not be shown in your drawing. And let's say if I click on that and turn that to shaded. As of right now, that referenced subassembly is not shaded, but you can then, should be able to go to model state. And now you have the option to do shaded. Shaded is referenced, so your edges will be dashed. Zoom in a little bit, you can see that. Double click again, go to the model state, maybe change it to, I want to represent it as a part, so the edges will be solid and will also be shaded. Parts list still only shows 4 different items, not that end arm there. All right, looks like we have about 15 more minutes left, so I'm going to try to maybe spend another 5 minutes, and then we'll get into some of the different comments that or questions you guys might have. So in the sheet metal environment, now a new improvement is if I were to go in and add an additional flange, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on these legs here. And then flange angle by a value, so you can specify your value here. Or I could say by reference, and I can come over here and just select a reference. Oops. Oops, let's see. Let's try this again here. I'm going to look at it from the right side here. See if I can. Let's try this again here. I'm going to delete that particular feature and do it a bit differently. So flange, I'm going to flange that one. And for reference, I'm going to select that surface. It should be bending that edge and giving it the same angle as that by selecting reference. I'm not sure why it's going way up there. Oh, wait a minute, that is right. So my apologies. So it is creating a flange. And if I select on, go to my inspect tab, select the measure tool, select that surface and that surface, they are on the same plane. So I use that surface as the reference, okay? Let me just try one more thing here on the flange. I'll get through this, I promise. All right, I think I got it here. So I'm gonna grab that edge, and right now it's at just a 60-degree angle. If I do a reference and then select that surface, it allows me to actually extend that up to that surface. And then at that point, it puts that flange in there which that flange is set to 1 inch. Okay, so being able to select a reference for where you want that flange to be brought up to. All right, so that's about it for what I was going to actually demonstrate for the What's New with Inventor 2021. I'm going to give it to Emily and see if there's any questions anybody has.
It doesn't look like there's any posted questions. We'll give you guys a couple of minutes if you have any last minute questions. But Jerry, one thing I wanted to ask was, what kind of resources does Applied have to help a company if they want to either install Inventor for the first time or just upgrade it, or as far as training and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said at the beginning of the webinar, you know, we have quite a few techs, whether it's Vault you need implemented, or maybe you want your Inventor templates, AutoCAD templates set up. You know, you install new software at your company, a new version of AutoCAD or Inventor, whatever it may be, and you're having trouble setting up your templates the way you want them. You know, one of our techs can certainly either come in to your location, or we could actually do some sort of live, almost like a go-to meeting or something, and actually log into your computer. Some of you may have had us for some of the first team support that you've called us on. So we just, you know, like I said, patch into your computer and we can take a look at your templates and maybe fix them for you, or as mentioned, come into your company and take care of it for you that way too. So pretty flexible. There will also be a survey sent out to all of you that have attended today's webinar for What's New. I believe with also some of the other webinars that we've had yesterday, and I think the FEA one that will be after lunch today. All right, so we do have some upcoming webinars coming up in May, June 4th and June 15th. So kind of make note of some of those events if you have any interest in the Vault Professional webinar, Electrical Essentials, Factory Design Utilities webinar. And there'll be obviously some other ones that are later this summer, just haven't been posted yet, basically.
And we do have a little sheet in the handouts section with links to register for all of those, as well as some more expanded explanations of them as well.
Yeah. So I'll just put this slide up for everyone that's still on the call. Basically, the last webinar that we have will be at 1 o'clock. That's the FEA one that Alex Sinclair will be doing. If any of you have any interest in FEA, or whether you've used it or not used it, I highly recommend attending that webinar if you have the time, because Alex is a very intelligent individual, and I think everyone can get a lot out of it. All right, so the 8 of you that are still on, appreciate you taking the time today to attend this webinar. All right, thank you, everyone. Bye.